hey guys, and welcome to the second of these videos exploring Grow here together at Bay Church, here in our Bay groups. And in this video, we're going to be exploring together what our weekly habits look like. Grow is a framework for our discipleship that helps us live in the story of God and develop as disciples of Jesus. And we think our weekly habits play a really important part in that. Now, we've said this, we've got this little framework of actually we want to grow in the story of God faith because we think there are lots of competing stories that we're bombarded with. And one of those stories, I think that we get so much in our Western culture is individualism.
Yeah.
What do you think of that? Is this something is this just me making this up, or are you kind of trying with that?
I think it's really good to identify that, because I think we're, as women especially, we've been told just recently, it's like, you don't need men, do it on your own. Like, you're strong women, like they don't need anyone. And I think for men as well, it's like, asking for help is a weakness.
Yes.
And actually it's much better to do it by yourself. One, because you get all the glory at the end of it. And two, because, then you've just shown how strong and good you are. But, as Christians, we're like, I'm really weak and I need Jesus at all times. And I think this is a really important thing. It's talked about in the Bible all the time. Like, you need fellowship. You need people around you. Like, I've tried to be a Christian on my own, and it's really, really hard, and it inevitably ends in failure because I don't think you can do it on your own. Jesus didn't do it on his own.
Yeah.
Like, he had friends around him, and I think it's really important. And I think it's maybe the most important bit about growth for me.
Okay. Yeah.
But also the thing that comes to me probably least naturally.
Yes.
It's definitely in my nature to. I'm okay by myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we've been raised in this Western culture, which is so focused on individuals, especially in the kind of the last 50 to 60 years, there is that sense in which actually you want to kind of throw off any commitment, any kind of sense of committing to other people or institutions or organizations that might kind of hinder your ability, your freedom to do whatever you want to do. Because
then you haven't got any choice, have you?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's rubbish.
And so in a world where kind of that choice is king, and that sense of like, actually, I want to make my own decisions, which in lots of ways makes lots of sense. I think the Bible tends to hold up a bit of a mirror to us on this and says, actually, no, you need other people. Like, you need other people. And actually, you make a really good point. Like, Jesus, the perfect man, right? Fully God, fully human, doesn't actually need other people in some ways if he's fully God, right?
But he wanted them.
But he wanted them. He wanted to hang out with other people. And I think he models that to us, that actually hanging out together, having friends is nice, right? And so it feels like a really basic thing to say, but having other people in your life is a good thing. And loving other people is a good thing. And so part of our vision for Grow is that our weekly habits help us to rebel against that story of individualism by helping us to grow in love for other people. There's a story in the New Testament where one of the teachers of the law came and heard Jesus debating with some other people. And he noticed that Jesus had given them this great answer about something else. And he asked Jesus, of all the commandments, which is the most important? And Jesus replies in Mark 12, he says, the most important commandment, answered Jesus, is this: Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. And the second is this: love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these. And actually, Jesus kind of picks up on this really important dynamic that runs throughout the pages of Scripture and throughout human history, and that actually our love for God is in some way caught up with our love for one another. And so loving God and loving our neighbor, you can't take them apart. I don't know about you, Faith, but I've got lots of friends who kind of and actually, at points in my own life, have definitely had this kind of thing where I've thought, oh, I love Jesus, but actually the church is broken. It's a flawed institution. I don't want to be part of that.
100%.
Is that kind of something you chime with, or?
Yeah. When I went to worship school, to worship college, and halfway through was like, do you know what? Like, Christianity's rubbish. Christians are rubbish. I'm done. Yeah. And I went to my tutor and I was like, I still love Jesus, but like, I'm done with this whole thing, because I was disappointed. I was let down. I was disillusioned, and it's so easy to do that. But what I was missing was grace and love for other people. I was expecting people to be perfect like Jesus, and I'm not perfect. They weren't perfect. Inevitably, I was disappointed, and I think that's what happens a lot.
And I think it begins, and I say this as a priest in the Church of England, a vicar in the church, a curate in the Church of England, whatever word you want to use to describe me within reason. Like actually, the church is flawed because it's full of flawed people. And people, we make decisions that are, not perfect, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And I think I really believe in these weekly habits of just persevering and loving and being part of a community that is kind of putting his hand up and saying, hey, we are not perfect. At no point are we pretending to be perfect. But hey, come and learn to be not perfect with us as we look towards the perfect one. We look towards Jesus. I guess the question then is, how do we do this? How do we go about developing our weekly habits? How do we allow those weekly habits to help us to love one another, to grow in love for one another? Well, you will see in your Grow guide, your Grow booklet, that there are 3 kind of commitments that we'd encourage you to make as kind of weekly habits and to kind of grow into. And so those 3 habits are being with us, loving others, and serving others. So we're just going to take those in turn, Faith, I guess. So the first one, being with us, making a commitment to be with us, to be with other people on a Sunday when we worship God together. Why should we do that, Faith?
Well, you know what? Because it's great. Well, like I say, I've tried to be a Christian without church. And it's really tough because that sense of, I love worship. So that sense of corporately coming together and worshiping, you can't get that on your own. Like, you can have great times with Jesus in his presence, but knowing that you're part of something bigger, knowing that you are part of a family, knowing that you are loved, knowing that you are welcome and you belong, and you're all doing something together, I just think is incredibly powerful. Just stuff like this as well. It's like you're hearing about stuff together. You can have conversations then. You can then move forward in your daily journey, in your daily relationship, or, with Jesus together. You have other people alongside you, and it just makes life so much better and so much easier to have people on the same page as you, but also with a different flavor.
Jesus commands us to love one another, encourages us to love one another. And actually, it's really hard to love each other at arm's length, isn't it?
It's not real love, is it?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And being together, making a habit of loving one another starts by making a commitment to be with one another, to be close to one another, in the same room as each other.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the things that came out of the pandemic, wasn't it? It was really hard to be away from our loved ones.
Yeah.
It was really hard. And actually being together in a room is just such a joy now. And it's really easy already, a couple of years down the line from the pandemic, really easy to take that sort of thing for granted again.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I guess that's kind of why, if you've come to the 10 or you come to the 4, we start or we end our times together with hospitality.
Right.
We kind of, we
love the food.
We love a bit of food. But then so did Jesus, and so I guess we start with hospitality because we want people to know that they're loved.
Yeah.
From the get-go. We want to express that love through a little chocolate on the door, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But actually, also, we want to have that space to chat, to get to know each other, to check in with each other, and to do that with people who you maybe wouldn't come across during the week, right? But I guess as well, we then have the joy of worshiping together, of praying together. What does that do for us, Faith? What does it do to kind of worship together as the people who are kind of journeying towards God, journeying with each other?
I mean, I can only speak from my own point of view or my own experience. But I recently actually did a talk on this at church.
Yes.
No.
It's on YouTube now, guys. Check it out.
But the power of corporate worship actually is incredible, because in that worship, we're encouraging each other. And, there's some Sundays when actually, it's really difficult to put your hands up and worship. But if the person next to you is really going for it, that is such an I find that such an encouragement. I said in that talk, there's weeks when I've stood on the stage and been able to see people, and I know little things are going on in their lives, not details, but to see them like sold out in that moment, it's like, wow, that's such an encouragement for me. Yeah. And I think that's part of church family. It's that encouragement. Yeah. It's that, it's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think there's a similar dynamic with praying for other people as well, isn't there? Like,
right.
And let's be real, praying for someone or allowing someone else to pray for you is actually quite a vulnerable thing, right?
It's incredibly scary.
Yeah, it can feel scary. Yeah. And especially if it's something that you're not experienced in. But actually, I would say, in some ways, I would say prayer is one of the most loving things we can do for another person. And drawing alongside someone or allowing someone else to draw alongside you. I have lost count of the number of times in my life where that has been the start of really key friendships or relationships, has been someone asking me to pray with them or me asking them to pray for me. And I think that can be a really vital, that's why we do it together on Sundays. Yeah. That's why we want to encourage people to do it together in bay groups and in other places and spaces within the life of the church. But actually there's that kind of that sense in which all of these ways of loving one another, it can feel quite vulnerable, can't it, Faith?
Yeah, and I think that in itself can be really off-putting sometimes. Yes. That in itself is enough to say, I don't want to do it, actually. But having done it, my experience is that it always ends well. Like, it is scary. And, sometimes you are disappointed in people because we're all flawed. But it's so worth it.
Yeah,
like, absolutely. The benefits far outweigh the costs in that moment. Yeah. And actually, it is a moment of scariness. Yes. And I think sometimes the enemy's like, oh, don't do it. Don't do it because it's going to be terrifying for you. Yeah. And there's a moment of scariness. And then you're like, oh, it's really not that bad. And I'm really glad because, our closest friends, we got to know them because they were going through the worst time in their lives. And they'd been going through it on their own for about 2 years. Yeah. And it was only when we, through not our own doing necessarily, but just really came alongside them, that relationship has now flourished into just the best thing ever. Yeah. And it was terrifying for them. I know it was terrifying for them, but it's so worth it. Yeah. I think it was worth it. I hope they think it was worth it. No.
Well, we've got them right here. No, we haven't.
No, but not being alone is huge. But I think the fear of being rejected or that fear of being vulnerable is enough to keep you on your own sometimes. Yes. So that's my encouragement is just do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, again, another space where we can kind of push it, can feel quite vulnerable, quite countercultural, is bay groups. And actually those kind of, here we want to, I guess bay groups are kind of the place where we rehearse what it looks like to love our neighbor as ourselves, or we practice what it looks like to love God together. And so again, this can feel quite vulnerable, kind of getting involved. It feels extremely countercultural. For friends of mine who maybe aren't, part of church or anything like that, the fact that we have people to our house every fortnight, every week, whatever it looks like, for you and your bay group, it blows their mind. Like, what, they come every fortnight to your house and you just hang out, the same people. And it is a really, I think we could, again, for someone who's been part of church for, half my life now, it can feel like a thing that I take for granted, but actually it's a really beautiful thing. It's gathering together in a smaller group of people, gathering together in a bay group, like you're doing. Well done. If you're doing this, if you're watching this, you're already doing it. You're already doing this habit. Well done. But actually, this is a place where we can commit to other people and learn what that looks like, and acknowledge that vulnerability that it's hard to do this. And so this is the place where we can love others and we can be loved. So I guess what does Bay Group look like for you, Faye? You're part of a Bay Group.
I am part of a Bay Group.
Tell me all about it. What does it look like for you guys?
Well, I'm very aware that they're watching, so it's the best ever.
And that you're probably sat with them in the future watching this right now.
So awkward. No, it's really great, but it is an effort for us. It's a Tuesday evening. We've got kids. Quite frankly, I'd like to just put my PJs on and watch rubbish on TV, right? That would be the ideal. That's what my flesh wants to do every Tuesday night. And yet, when we make the effort, when we go, which we do mostly, It's so worth it because actually I get to have chats with people who I don't get to see on a Sunday or I don't have time to speak to on a Sunday or, you know, whatever. It allows you to go just a little bit deeper and it allows you, like you say, that relationship to be like, oh, hey, you were really struggling with this or this was happening. Like, how's that going? It's just, it gives you more space and more time to love people.
Yes.
Actually makes that loving a little bit easier because you're right there and there's time and space just allowed. And again, it's that journey of doing things together, but it's almost like intensified from a Sunday because it's a smaller group.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah, and I guess there's that sense in which the habit of a Bay group is the committing to meeting together, right? That's the habit.
Yeah.
And almost that's the most important bit is just being there, being together. What you then do as a group is important, absolutely. But it's actually being there, being in the room together is probably the most important habit of a Bay group. And I guess then, you know, secondary, the Grow booklet goes into this, the Grow guide talks about are there other habits you can develop together as a group which will help you to love each other well? My group haven't, you know, not to boast, but we like to hang out and eat food together, right?
What?
And so, you know, not to boast about how great my group is, but we are great. And so actually it's, you know, eating together again is just a really wonderful thing to do. Serving together in some way or just kind of hanging out and doing things that you know you enjoy together can be really simple habits of just kind of growing in love for one another, or just helping each other out in those times, like being honest, having a sort of weekly check-in at the start of the week or like we have a little WhatsApp group in my group and we just sort of check in with each other. Or like people will chuck up memes and things like that just to like check in or encourage each other or just make each other, frankly, just make each other laugh. And so
because
Bay
it's
groups,
about relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And we can overthink it, but it's about committing to each other and about relationship. So that's Bay groups. And I guess the third space in our weekly habits is serving others, through Cruise. Hey, Faith, tell us about Cruise.
Wow, I love Cruise. I run some Cruise.
There we go.
No, again, hugely underrated because I think you get such a sense of belonging from being active at church. I think it's really easy, actually. I know we've obviously said about committing to services and that's really important, but you can still come and leave and never actually make connection. And it's really, and that's why groups are then so great. But also Cruise, you can come and you have a part to play. Everyone has a part to play. But being really active, it just integrates you so much easier and so much quicker. Like I always say, people are like, oh, I don't know how to, you know, how do I get to know people? And I'm like, hey, get on Welcome Crew. Because you're on the door and you're like, hello to everyone. So then you immediately get to know faces. People get to know your face. So then another week when you're not on, it's like, oh, hey, how are you doing? You know, it's easy. It's such an easy thing, but it is costly.
Yes, absolutely.
And all of these things will cost you, but they're worth it. All of them. So worth it. I just, for me, it's another way to build relationship with people and it's another way to integrate into the family.
Absolutely. Like a really core way of getting integrated into 100%. The Bay church community. And of any church community. But it's also a really practical way of loving others and learning to grow in loving others. And I don't, it's really easy for me as kind of like a curate or you as the worship pastor for people to maybe think that we have like an ulterior motive of like, oh, you just need to fill a rota. And it's like in one sense, we do. If we want to see the things done, if we want to see our vision become a reality, we need people to come and be part of the worship crew. We need people to help make coffee. Absolutely. But the primary thing of Cruise is always for our own discipleship. It's always for that kind of that throwing off that story of individualism and saying like, no, I want to join in with something that's bigger than me. And actually, you know, if it all becomes about, you know, just maintaining what we do as a church, as an organization,
keeping the machine running.
Keeping the machine running. If people ever feel like a cog in a machine, it's gone wrong somewhere, and we need to address that. The heart is actually, this is to help people grow and to give people the opportunity to grow in depth and to grow as we serve and to grow as we love other people. Is there anything more loving than giving them a chocolate on a door and saying hello? I don't know, Faith.
Well, I think it could be more loving to serve on production.
Wow,
No.
we could.
There is nothing greater, though, is there, than seeing somebody with a gift
Yes.
who then brings it and gives
absolutely.
it wholeheartedly. And then it's just like, whoa.
Yeah, absolutely. And recognizing that gift is actually a huge blessing to other people. Well, the train has just made a big whistle noise in the background. That's probably time for us to end this second video looking at our weekly habits. Now it's over to you in your Bay groups to explore this together. There'll also be some questions up on the screen for you to just discuss. We've had our little discussion about what our weekly habits look like. And it would be great if you now turn to each other in your Bay groups and explore these questions together.